It's about what methods are available to protect assets while doing business in the United States. The concept is that once you transfer your assets into a trust, they are no longer yours, so they cannot be touched. It's necessary to make good use of the three methods I mentioned. The essence of the question is about concerns regarding legal and financial risks that may arise while doing business, and as a solution, I will explain that by appropriately utilizing the following three methods, you can effectively achieve asset protection from risks arising from investments and business in the United States. This is about three powerful asset protection methods for business owners. I am the owner of a restaurant chain that I have been operating for 15 years. The restaurant business has a large cash flow and involves many contracts with customers, employees, and business partners, so the risk of lawsuits is always present. Recently, I heard about a business owner I know who got involved in a lawsuit and lost all the wealth he had accumulated over his lifetime. It was a huge shock to me as well. I also thought that I need to protect my own assets from any legal or financial risks. If one's home, retirement funds, and investment assets are not protected, it seems like there would be significant anxiety about the future. That's why I'm reaching out to seek advice from an expert. That's what it means. It's a question that comes up quite often, right? In the context of doing business in the United States, it's about asset protection, isn't it? It's about what methods are available to protect assets. The point is that there are concerns about potential legal or financial risks in running a business. And in such cases, what I would suggest is that by appropriately utilizing the following three strategies, you can effectively achieve asset protection from the risks associated with investment, business in the United States. So let's take a look. Before we get started, this channel provides professional information on U.S. law, tax law, and financial planning in a way that's easy to understand. Not only this video, but we plan to continue uploading more beneficial content in the future. So I hope you don't miss out. To ensure that, if you haven't already, please make sure to hit subscribe and like. There are three methods. First of all, we can consider the process of incorporation, such as LAC or corporation, in a separate video. We have also prepared videos comparing LAC and corporations. But when we talk about a corporation, it refers to an independent legal entity that acts as a subject of economic activity. It means that instead of being a sole proprietor, you establish a corporation, a separate legal entity, to conduct business through that entity. Why do we do this? The biggest reason is legal protection. In other words, it has the advantage of being able to separate and protect the personal assets of the business owner from the assets of the corporation through which the business is operated. To delve a bit deeper into this, that means I have limited liability in doing business. You only bear limited liability. Ultimately, when you establish a corporation and invest capital into it, the business activities are conducted with the capital invested in the corporation. So any legal or financial risks that arise will only affect the amount you invested, not your personal assets. This means that personal assets are protected. In a way, this is obvious. It's because of the reason that it's a corporate business through incorporation. That's the first point. There are downsides. The first one is this. For example, when obtaining a loan, it's common to require a personal guarantee. When entering into a loan agreement or any contract with a business partner, they might say that the corporation alone is not enough, so you need to provide a personal guarantee. There are cases where this is required. The act of requiring this is not illegal in itself. Depending on how I respond to this, there's a downside that the risk might inevitably transfer to the individual, even though I'm running a corporate business. The second one is this. Depending on the nature of the business conducted through a corporation, there might be cases where the corporation alone does not provide protection. Medical practice, or law practice like mine, these are typical examples of professional fields. Separate from the protection the corporation receives, the individual responsibility extends to the person providing the service or engaging in the activity. This means that even if it's done through a corporation, the responsibility extends beyond that. That's the limitation. And the third point is, what kind of business is it? This is the biggest risk, referring to situations where the corporate entity is disregarded. For example, it's like this. You establish a corporation, but if you don't operate it as a separate legal entity and use it as if it's a personal asset. For instance, it's a corporation, but you don't hold board meetings on time. Also, if you mix corporate accounts with your personal accounts, in such cases, the corporate entity will not be recognized. It will be disregarded. This is called piercing the corporate veil in English. In such cases, even if you conduct business as a corporation, it won't be recognized and the risk will transfer to the individual. Paradoxically, lawyers will prioritize looking for this when challenging the opposing party in a claim. In other words, if I am attacking the opposing party and they are doing business as a corporation. But if that person personally has a lot of assets, the first thing to look for is whether there's room to deny the corporate entity. Therefore, These disadvantages need to be considered. The second method we can consider for asset protection is an asset protection trust. Now, what did we say a trust is? A trust is a private contract, right? The founder, called the grantor, establishes a trust and places their assets into it. The trustee, who is the manager, oversees the assets within the trust and ultimately sends the profits or principal from the trust's assets to the beneficiary. This is referred to as a private contract structure. So, how is this effective for asset protection? This refers to an irrevocable trust among the trusts. We're talking about this irrevocable trust. The concept is that if I, as the grantor, transfer my asset, since it's an irrevocable trust, it means I no longer own him. Ultimately, I no longer have any control over the asset I put into the trust. Since I am not receiving any control, even if my creditors try to raise issues or collect against my personal assets, they cannot touch the assets I transferred to the trust because they are no longer mine. That's the concept. I have explained it simply, and when we talk about an SF protection trust created for the purpose of SF protection, we incorporate various complex clauses to faithfully reflect my intentions and also include numerous mechanisms to ensure that SF protection is respected in its operation. It must be operated accordingly. However, in the big picture, this is how it is. It's about being able to say, this is no longer mine, by creating an irrevocable trust and transferring assets into it. By doing so, the assets placed in the trust are protected from risks arising from any other business activities I undertake. So then, what is the difference between this and a corporation? First, let's talk about a corporation. Let's say I have my own assets. In conducting business with my assets, by placing my assets into a corporation, I only bear legal risks up to the assets within the corporation, while my other personal assets are protected from such business activities. That's the concept. In contrast, a trust is different. It's not about bearing risks only for the assets placed in a trust, but rather it allows the assets placed in the trust to be protected from other business activities. The two are different. The two are completely opposite. A corporation means that my risks are limited to the assets placed within the corporation, whereas a trust means that the assets placed in the trust are protected from risks arising from my other activities. So, what are the disadvantages when protecting assets through a trust? The first is this. The biggest one is the loss of ownership. As mentioned earlier, when you place assets in a trust to provide asset protection, the assets transferred to the trust must no longer be yours. It means that my influence, which I can control, must be minimized or eliminated. As a result, there's the disadvantage of losing ownership, control, and power over the asset. And the important thing is this. It's called a social act. It's known as a fraudulent transfer. There are situations like this. Let's say I'm running a business, and an issue arises that could potentially lead to a lawsuit. I'm just running my business, but that person thinks they suffered a loss due to one of my business decisions and seems likely to raise an issue with me. If that's the case, then creating a trust and transferring assets into it afterward won't be helpful. Therefore, setting up a trust after anticipating a lawsuit risk is not advisable. In fact, what is called a fraudulent transfer refers to a situation where, despite the asset still being in my possession, I pretend to transfer it to avoid the risk of a lawsuit. So, there's a disadvantage in that you're not free from such challenges. Of course, there's another video. The thumbnail is being shown now. In this video, even in such situations, there are explanations about options and methods to protect yourself from fraudulent transfers. Those interested in that content should refer to the separate video. Thirdly, you can take out life insurance and annuity products. The concept originally pertains to financial products. Things like stocks or real estate are not protected from my business risks when I invest in and own these assets, because it's my personal property. However, even though they are the same investment assets, life insurance and annuities can provide this asset protection feature. What is life insurance? It's something that ensures my family doesn't panic if something happens to me. It's a mechanism that helps them maintain a stable economic life continuously. It's a system encouraged by the government. Therefore, when we say it's encouraged, it means there are various tax benefits provided. And by utilizing this, taking advantage of the benefits provided by the government, it allows you to not only give the posthumous benefits, which is the basic function of insurance, to your loved ones, but also use it as a source of retirement income during your lifetime, as I've mentioned in several other videos. However, today I'm not going to talk about that, but rather focus on the perspective of asset protection. For example, investing $1 million of my assets in stocks or real estate does not provide any asset protection from business risks, but if you invest in life insurance, it means you can receive protection from creditors. This is not common in all states, but generally to a significant extent, especially in places like Florida and Texas, they offer the highest level of protection. In any case, by investing in such an insurance product, the expected death benefit you will receive in the future, or the cash value that accumulates to provide you with retirement income, all of these can also have the effect of asset protection. That's what I'm saying about this investment product. This is true for any location. I'm talking about an annuity product. You invest a lump sum. It's a product structured to provide you with a steady amount of money throughout your lifetime. I explained this in a separate video. However, what I'm discussing today is not the utility of these as financial products, but their utility as products that provide asset protection, SF protection functions. Just like life insurance mentioned earlier, in many states, you are protected from lawsuits. Of course, since the level of protection varies by state, you need to check the laws in your area. For example, as I mentioned earlier, in the case of Florida, retirement products offer a very high level of asset protection, but in contrast, states like California and others, they only provide asset protection to a reasonably necessary level. Anyway, despite that, it's important to know that among these financial products, life insurance and retirement products offer utility as products that can protect you. So, if we approach this comprehensively, there are three things. First, it's necessary to go through the process of separating liability through incorporation, like an LLC. Secondly, by establishing an SF protection trust, you ensure that a portion of your personal assets is protected from any other activities. And for other general assets, by utilizing life insurance and annuities for a portion of your investments, you can reduce litigation risks. At the same time, you can also benefit in terms of asset protection, including retirement and estate planning, as well as securing cash flow. The same applies to the restaurant owner we talked about earlier. Ultimately, you can reduce business risks through LAC by transferring a portion of the various cash flows you earn to an SF protection trust. It can be utilized for the benefit of your family, other beneficiaries, and by investing in life insurance, you can also prepare for retirement income. This provides a way to strengthen SF protection as well. I feel like I've summed it up quite clearly. As a business owner, to effectively manage legal and financial risks, it's necessary to appropriately utilize the three methods I've mentioned according to your situation. By doing so, you will likely be able to effectively achieve asset protection from risks that may arise from investments and business in the United States. I hope today's content was helpful. I believe there are people around you who need this kind of information. This channel is one that grows with you. Please don't miss out on essential information in the future by subscribing and liking. Also, I ask you to help ensure this information is adequately shared with those around you. I'll see you next time. Thank you.